Hello, Haley and Bill. So I'm super excited today, everybody, because our typical Bill is here. And so we're very excited about that. Good to see you. And I see there's, I don't know if we brought this up before, but I see a new name on your shirt over here.
Yes, sir. Yep. Breezy Financial. With
Breezy
broker.
Financial. Well, congratulations on the move. I feel like you've got
Yep.
some probably good things to say about them and some new tools or whatever you're doing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, excited to go 100% broker and be able to be direct to the investor and honestly give the best rate out there to the client. And on top of that, you still get me. So you get my great
Hey.
service, my great personality, and my knowledge.
Oh, yay.
So win-win. No,
I love when we
excited
both
about the
look at this.
opportunity. That's for sure.
No, it's good. Well, I'm happy for you. Super excited. And today we've got both mine and Bill's good friend, Haley, with Ameriprise. Haley is an amazing financial advisor. I knew I was in love with her the minute we went to our first Postino's happy hour and we ordered the same bruschetta boards and the same wine. I knew we were like soul sisters right there. So, it was great getting to know you over these past months, and your wealth of knowledge is incredible, right? Because I came across this DST product. This is what we're talking about today, is Delaware Securities Trust. And of course, when I said, "Hey, Haley, what do you know about this?" You're like, "Hey, you know what? I know a good bit, but I'm going to get some more information for you." So I love the fact that you have the information, but then you wanted to expound on it. And I'm like, well, I think this is a call. So before we get into DSTs, I want to hear more about you and tell us a little bit about your background and why Ameriprise. Like, tell us all the things.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I've been in finance for a little over like going on 15 years now. I started as an individual options trader and I managed money privately before kind of getting licensed and getting into the business. And so I'm also a fairly active real estate investor myself. So I think that kind of makes me unique as a financial advisor because I not only obviously really understand the financial and security side of things, and then how to blend it with real estate. So I think that's kind of what makes me a little bit unique as a financial advisor. And so,
Well, and I've also learned you're a little bit of an adrenaline junkie.
yes,
Yeah.
I mean, like the things I've seen you do, I'm like, good Lord, that's amazing.
yeah,
So there's motocross,
yeah,
there's off-roading, there's a couple things in there.
yeah, side by sides,
Yeah.
fast cars and all the things. And like, same thing when it comes to like the flips and stuff that I've done. I'm like, how many flips is my capacity? Let's try 5 at the same time and see.
Oh, yeah, because that's always fun.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Oh, very cool. Well, thanks for being here and joining us today because when I read about this DSTs, which is the Delaware Statutory Agent. Oh, wait, no, sorry. Delaware Statutory Trust. Thank you. Okay. I was very surprised I had never heard of them because, like you, I'm an avid investor. I've done 1031 exchanges. I've done reverse 1031 exchanges. I know these products. So when this came to me, I was very surprised. And the people who were on the call with me, who are also very well versed in real estate and stuff, this was sort of a surprise to them too. I think only out of 10 or 12 that were on the call, like one knew it. And so I was like, well, if I'm not familiar with it, and I'm not saying I know it all, but I'm fairly familiar with a lot of products, I really wanted to get more information to people who may not know this is an option for them. So I know they're not exactly like a 1031 exchange, but people have been talking about them like a 1031 exchange. So can you tell me, like, how does this function like that? How is this similar? Why are people talking about them in the same sentences?
Yeah, so the Delaware Statutory Trust is kind of a unique product in the sense it allows, and it's very similar to the 1031 exchange product. And I actually have a little slide if you want me to show you real
You are
fast.
absolutely welcome to.
Yeah, let me go to do
You can
that.
share your screen.
Do you see? There we go. Do you see it there?
It will come up in there. It is. Oh,
There it
nice.
is.
We got slides. Sweet.
Yeah, okay. Let me click through these for you. So I'll come back to this. So the Delaware Statutory Trust, it acts it's very similar to the 1031 exchange process, but instead of exchanging for another physical property, you're actually exchanging for a percent of ownership into a professionally managed property. So I think it's important that I kind of establish some of the distinctions between there's actually 4 types of exchanges that an investor can actually go into. And so this Delaware Statutory Trust is one that tends to be a little bit more from an accredited investor side standpoint to where you're typically dealing with larger portfolios, like the hold times can be a little bit longer. And so if you want me to just dive into the different exchanges, I can go ahead and do so unless you've got.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Let me go back to why this is really important to realtors. One, I'm going to talk about not only just the DSTs, but there's another exchange called the 721 exchange. And I actually think, from an advisor standpoint, I think that's actually more powerful to investors because there's a lot more benefits in there, even the requirements you don't have to be an accredited investor necessarily to participate in a DST. So I'll just kind of go forward with that. But right off the bat, when dealing with DSTs or even just 721 exchanges, this unlocks property sales. So for you as a realtor, when you have a owner that would never sell otherwise, or they just wouldn't even seek to sell just because they don't want to pay the capital gains, they maybe don't even want to do the 1031 exchange process because that just continues the swap until you drop. And so some people just aren't interested in that. As a realtor, you get to sell these properties to start the exchange process too. So again, it's just one more transaction that you're able to do and help clients. The huge benefit that I see also is helping your clients streamline their real estate portfolio. So you get to sell the worst and keep the best. So that can create multiple transactions to, again, optimize. And then you're that much more of a expert in your field to where you can sit down with your client and say, hey, I have these 10 properties. These 3 are the underperforming assets. Let's go ahead and get rid of them. Let's keep the 7 that are really high performers. So you're the expert in that. And they're going to obviously refer you when you're helping them become more efficient in their business.
Yeah.
The other thing that with these exchanges is the owner can strip out their basis. And all that means is basically it's the cost of the property plus the improvements. So you can actually, let's take an example of a $1 million duplex. Somebody use that later. And their cost basis on the property is $200,000. You can use these exchanges or these DSTs to take the $800,000, roll that into the 721 or the DST, and you can use that cost basis to go purchase other property if you wanted to. So I think that's where the key benefits for realtors is when it comes to these exchanges. So just to review real fast, so there's really 4 types of exchanges that you can do as an investor. As you said, a lot of people are familiar with the 1031 exchange. It's more of a do-it-yourselfer, hands-on. This is the deal gal, deal guy. The good and bad news is when you do 1031 exchange, you're in control. The bad news, when you do a 1031 exchange, you're also in control. Where the Delaware Statutory Trust qualifies as it's a 1031 exchange, again, to where you own a percent of professionally managed property, where maybe I'll use that same $1 million duplex, and you would exchange that $1 million, let's just say it's a 4-plex that an investor owns, and you're exchanging it for shares or operating, but just shares of a, multifamily, like luxury Dallas property. Okay. So that's kind of how it still qualifies as 1031 exchange.
So it's still 1031. So do you have those same limitations as far as days and like within a 1031, you have to identify in 45 days and close on 180 date and close in 180? Does it still have that limitation?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you buy a percent. So in this situation with the $100 million, so you're buying 1/100th of this duplex or multifamily in Dallas, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I'm assuming your returns on this would be 1/100th of their returns.
Typically. So typically, yes, there is still one of the downfalls to DSTs is their high fee structure. So because you have a professional management company that's coming in and taking over everything, your returns become passive as well as kind of your ownership. So you will participate in any appreciation that the property has. However, that's one of the downfalls to DSTs.
So the upside to that could be you don't have to do anything. Like with the 1031, you're now the landlord. You may not have the property managed with it. It just depends. This may be something where if you want to be hands off, this may be a good option.
Correct. Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. Now you may already be getting into this after, but can anybody get into a DST, or do you have to have certain qualifications?
So typically for a DST, it's usually an accredited investor. So
Mhm.
that's where you're looking at typically like $250,000 of income or $1 million net worth. Like you're starting to get into like the higher accredited status
Okay,
where,
so this is as the buyer, you have to have these things, the net worth and the okay, got you. All right.
yeah, yeah. So sometimes that can limit the participant or the participation in these products to where, yeah, you just start to weed out the like kind of mom and pop investor occasionally, especially if
Mhm.
they're a business owner or, they only have this one duplex, then that could be, eliminates some of the participants. But
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah. And this is just an example of kind of what we would see from like a traditional, this would be a fourplex, a duplex. Now you're transitioning into that one ownership of that or participation of those shares of this Dallas property. The other, it's pretty simple for how it works. You sell your property, the current investor property, same process as the 1031 exchange. You're going through a qualified intermediary, just like you said,
So
Christy.
real quick too, that intermediate is going to be really important, right? Because they technically own that bit of money that they're taking that money from you necessarily to go into because the 1031 and all these it can't hit your bank account, right? So you have to have a very trusted 1031 intermediary.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because that cash can't hit the investor's accounts, otherwise it disqualifies the transaction. So, saying 45-day to identify the property, you have to close in the 180 days using a qualified intermediary. So sometimes that can be even just a hard and burdensome process in itself, and that's what will keep investors out of even starting the exchange process. So
Mhm.
it's just another. Yeah. With the DSTs, so the benefits of it is a tax deferral. So you continue to tax defer. So that kind of swap until you drop sort of mindset. You do get access to institutional quality real estate. And then we've talked about this previously where it's passive ownership, which also when you have passive ownership, that tends to have passive returns as well. So everything in life is based off risk. The Another benefit to the DST or even just a 721 exchange is the speed and certainty to close. So once you've identified the DST that the investor wants to participate in, your certainty to close, they can close at 3 to 5 days. And I will put a little caveat on that where yes, they can close in 3 to 5 days, but it's likely they need to you typically have to go through investment advisors or financial advisor to do these transactions. You can't just go directly to the DST typically. And like Ameriprise, for example, you have to be applying for 30 days in order to participate in something like, because again, these are higher level investments. This is not just like going out and buying Apple stock. So you typically have to be a client for 30 days before participating in any of these.
Okay, then so what about like for Bill? Like if someone and Bill, I don't even think you could do this, but so you have this 1/100th of that share. You're you maybe had a loan on that property you sold, right? But you have to put all that money into it.
Yep.
Can you get a loan to put the balance in?
Yeah, there are ways for them to structure, like, so if there is remaining debt on the property, and there are ways and for them to like non-recourse loans that they'll help with. That is sort of
Gotcha.
specific to the company that you're dealing with. Each one will function a little bit differently, but there are ways to remove that debt over. And so I actually have that as the best. Let me just jump forward real fast, actually. Sorry. Whoops. Hold on. I go backwards. Huh. Okay. So the ideal candidate for either a 721 exchange or a DST are typically properties that have little to no debt. So as a realtor, what you're really looking for are the mature real estate portfolios. Um, Again, little to no debt because it's very easy to exchange at that point. But with the DSTs and the 721 exchanges, you don't have to perpetuate the debt cycle, which is one of the things I think that's very attractive to going into one of these alternatives investments versus going into the traditional 1031 exchange process. Um,
Gotcha.
with they don't work well with high leverage or large debt. So that's typically not the investor that you're looking for, like someone who's very actively building a portfolio, because they're usually using leverage. They have high debt because just spread across their portfolio in general, because they are actively building. That's typically not the person that you're looking for these exchanges.
Not you.
One, I find it's the tired landlord. So that's definitely one out there. That another kind of one that's a little surprising is the aging contractor or tradesman. So this is typically like your 70-year-old, like cabinet maker, basically, that, along the ways of their career picked up one or two or maybe three or four investment properties, and they've been the one that is maintaining the property, turning the property. And so they're just starting to get a little tired of that, but they bought it 20 years ago. And now what do they do with it? They have all these embedded gains, and they're tired of maintaining it. So the aging contractor is kind of a under the radar, because they do have these properties and they just don't know what to do with them. And so kind of going back to that real estate investor that's looking to optimize the portfolio. So going back to that example of maybe they have 10 properties, 3 are kind of, you've got some 30-year-old roofs, just deferred maintenance. The properties they've owned them for a long time. Let's get rid of the 3 underperforming properties, keep the 7. So it doesn't have to be, it can still be an active investor, but just optimizing the portfolio. The other LLC owners. So let's just say there's 2 partners in an LLC, or they own the property in an LLC. They can't really agree on what to do with the property, as far as one wants to keep it, one wants to go, wants to sell. If they roll into one of these exchanges, you can actually, since it's divisible by shares, it's a way for owners to basically split. It's a divorce, an LLC divorce. So that's kind of the ideal place that you're looking for these candidates, I would say. But let me go back to some of the cons or just some of the benefits and the cons on actually we went over the benefits already on the DST. Because there are some important considerations when considering them. The lack of control that is given, right? It's a catch-22. You have no participation in the decision-making process. The illiquidity of a DST is really important to highlight. So you're looking at typical long hold times, so like 5 to 10 years of illiquidity. For investors that are really active, they typically don't usually like this, because they're used to being able to turn and make those decisions pretty quickly. In the 5 to 10 year, like, that's usually a pretty typical lockup period. And I talked about the accredited investor. So you're really looking at individuals with a net worth of over $1 million typically, and that's excluding their primary home, or high annual incomes of 250 or more. So the fees can be very high upfront on the DSTs as well. So you're looking from 10 to 15% of the investment, which can be a really important consideration.
Yeah.
Given the cost.
Your taxes may not be that high, so it's something to think about.
Yeah. So instead of the DST, there's what's called the 721 exchange. I actually liked this method a little better, because a lot of the cons that come with the DST, you eliminate through the 721 process. There's a direct 721 exchange and an indirect 721 exchange. A direct 721 exchange is you are the investor that has the $100 million luxury Dallas multifamily that a REIT wants to purchase. So typically it's and this is for the mega wealthy who, you just don't come across that client very often. And the catch is you need to have the property that the REIT wants to buy. So that is also very hard to come by.
So Haley, real quick, can
Yeah.
you just explain what a REIT is?
Yeah, it's a real estate investment trust. So it's basically a conglomerate it's another passive way to own real estate. You're a passive investor. It's a conglomerate you can own warehouses, storage facilities.
One of the largest REITs is public storage.
Yes, exactly. That's usually a portfolio of real estate. Yeah. Now, the indirect 721 exchange, it's a 2-step process, and it kind of eliminates some of the long hold times. So It's a valid 1031 exchange into a building. So that's the DST portion. So you're selling that. Let me just go. This indirect 721 exchange, how it works. So you own that $1 million duplex. And in order to get into the DST portion is the valid 1031 exchange into that Dallas luxury property. So now you own those shares, or you're just one equity owner in this $100 million Dallas luxury multifamily. It's a typical 2-year holding period because the IRS, in order to have this 1031 exchange, it has to be a passive investment. So they consider roughly 2 years. So if I have roughly a 2-year holding period, sometimes it could be 18 months, sometimes it could be a little bit longer, just depends on where the property is in the cycle of the REIT purchasing it. So typically in the indirect 721 exchange, the REIT has already pre-identified the building if they want to purchase, or they're actually pulling that building out of their REIT that they already own and allowing people to invest into it. And then in that 2-year time frame, they come back and absorb it into the REIT. So from this 2 year, so this is the DST portion. After that 2-year holding period, the REIT will come in and again absorb it. And you typically have to sit in the REIT for in exchange for shares, I should say. So instead of the DST shares, now you have REIT shares. So
And that's for another 2 years.
exactly. Yep.
So your holding time's going to be somewhere around 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah. 4 years typically is the quickest liquidity versus the 5 to 10 years with the DSTs.
Oh, okay.
And it's a 2-year longer hold time than your typical 1031 exchange.
Right.
So it's kind of that middle ground. But I will go over all you still all the pros that the DST provides. You get to keep all of that with these 721 exchanges. I'm saying a cons being it's a 4-year illiquidity. And then the other thing that's probably the biggest thing as far as a watch out is when you're using these products, it tends to be an end of life for physical real estate. So what I mean by that is you cannot take the 721 exchange or even a DST and then, take your $1 million and then go back and buy physical property. That's kind of a watch out for people. So, but what you can do is you can strip out the basis and go buy physical property. So or you can
And then what do you do with the rest of the money? You put it into a trust or something?
So typically this is where it can be owned in a trust or it can be owned as an individual or LLC. It's just kind of how it's set up. So
that's where you come in handy. And when someone got that situation, make that call to Haley real quick.
Yes, I do that. And
Awesome. I did it.
the biggest benefit to from an estate planning perspective. So again, let's just think of that tired landlord or the tradesman who's 72 years old. Does his wife really want to maintain that fourplex when on his passing, or when he's an adult who's going to turn over the property and that sort of thing? So from an estate planning perspective, or even the kids, do the kids really want to manage it? It's very unlikely. So when they roll into the 721 or the DST, then those shares are then, they can be sold at any time by anybody, whether it happens after that death when the beneficiaries get the stepped up cost basis. So all of that still applies with the 721s. So
wow, this is incredible. And I had never heard of 721 before, so you just blew my mind with that too. So I think the big thing here is if anyone has any questions about this, reach out to Haley because she's clearly the one who knows her stuff. And I feel like there's a lot of specificity to each person's situation. This isn't a one size fits all. You clearly have to have certain things lined up. And this may or may not be the best thing for you, but at least there's an option for something like this. And it would be great for people to reach out and just say, hey, this is what I have. Does it fit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Every situation is a little bit different. And, it's stuff where, I'm happy to answer any questions, but really, I feel like for the realtors, it does unlock properties that you typically would not get your clients to consider selling. And then
This is a great conversation piece.
Yeah, 100%.
Bill, do you have any questions for Haley before we let her go? And Get through your
I
day.
mean, a lot of this stuff people don't know about, but that's why you'd have trusted professionals like Haley that handle it. Don't try to do it
Exactly.
yourself.
Yeah. Well, and you don't know what you don't know. I didn't even know there was a 721. I didn't know before that there was a DST. So, like, I mean, we're learning something new every day.
Don't trust
And
the
now,
internet.
yes. So, of course, as always, I will have Haley's contact information in mind and Bill's contact information in the comments. If you have any questions, you can reach out to Haley directly. She is based here in Phoenix. And so, and she's amazing for content and information and education. So please reach out to her. And of course, Bill, we're super excited you're over at Reese. So if anyone has questions about his do loan programs or what he can do for you to buy that investment property to get started so that Haley can do these exchanges and all this stuff for us as time goes on. So, well, thank you both for being here again. We really appreciate you. And we'll
Yeah.
talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.